Good evening, everyone. I'm Sourodip Ghosh, and I'm here on behalf of my organization, Karghewale. I'm humbled to be part of this forum today, to be given this wonderful opportunity to share our work with you, and I really hope I'm able to do it justice. Our organization, as I said, is called Karghewale, and one of the common complaints that we have had with the name is that it's a difficult one to pronounce. So I thought if I could put the name up on the screen right at the beginning, that might be one way of addressing the issue. So hopefully this helps. Our organization, Karghewale, was founded in December 2020 by Nivedita Rai, who's my partner, and me. And we conceived it to be an incubator for artisan-promoted micro-enterprises. In simpler terms, Karghewale works with artisans who harbor entrepreneurial dreams, who wish to become designers in their own right, and it provides them with the institutional support that is necessary for them to make their transition from job workers in crafts with very little creative control of their work to artisan designers and artisan designer entrepreneurs who have enhanced agency in the practice of their creative crafts. So I'll be using this three-pronged framework of context, conflict, and resolution to give you kind of a guided tour of our work today. Where under context, we'll talk about the problems that are there in the current situation. Under conflict, we'll try and understand the underlying reasons, the causes behind that problem. And under resolution, we'll talk about, I'll tell you about the solution that we have come up with as an organization. And I hope it piques your interest in our work. So let's talk about the context first. There's this popular saying in India that to talk about Indian handicrafts is to talk about India itself, because Indian handicrafts are so diverse and so varied, and they change so much as one travels from one state to the next, one region to the next, that they seem to represent India in all its diversity. And that is completely true. What is also true is that the craft sector of India of late has become a sector of contradictions. On the demand side, there stands a burgeoning global handicrafts market that is valued at over $700 billion and is growing at a rate of more than 10% annually. And on the other hand, on the supply side, India is home to a 7 million strong artisanal population, where monthly earnings from craft is still less than $70. Now, a direct result of this conflict, which is one of dismal payoffs despite a healthy demand pool existing, is an attrition rate that is as staggering as it is terrible. The handloom and handicraft sector of India loses more than 1 million artisans every decade. And that happens because disillusioned by the present prospects of their traditional vocation and dispirited by the earnings that can no longer sustain their growing aspirations, the younger generation of artisans resort to trying their luck at other forms of employment. And they often migrate to cities to work as security personnel or at construction sites with terrible living conditions. Now, what is interesting to note is that however terrible the working and living conditions in these odd city jobs may be, the younger generation of artisans still seem to prefer that over pursuing their traditional craft, which is a testimony of just how unfashionable and non-remunerative they have come to consider their craft to have become. And again, we must remind ourselves that these supply-side realities have persisted despite a healthy demand pull for artisanal products that exist, which is represented in that $700 billion global handicrafts market. So this is the situation as it stands. The primary problem that the craft sector is suffering from at this point is one of dismal wage rates, dismal earnings, despite a healthy demand for artisanal products. Now, the question that naturally follows is why this dichotomy? You see, over the last quarter of a century, production and marketing interfaces in crafts have evolved in such a way that it has given rise to an alternate craft-like value chain. This craft-like value chain is called handmade manufacturing. And handmade manufacturing is actually distinct from creative crafts, and there was a time when it was considered to be so. But now, of late, because of its predominance, it has started becoming synonymous with creative crafts. It is actually the predominance of handmade manufacturing-based interventions in crafts of late, which is at the root of the central issue of low remuneration and the perceived unfashionableness of handloom and handicrafts as a vocation. So let's take a look at this handmade manufacturing value chain and what it actually entails. Handmade manufacturing refers to the process where an organization seeks to produce or mass produce a line of craft products by employing artisans in a semblance of an assembly line. Here, design and conceptualization are treated as separate expertise and are taken care of by third parties. Artisans are typically excluded from the design phase of the product and employed solely as the means of execution. Now, handmade manufacturing at present is the preferred operating model, not only of middlemen, but also of small scale craft enterprises, as well as craft sector nonprofits alike. So the adoption of this operating model is not because of any maleficence, but because of the simple intent on behalf of the organization to provide employment to artisans within their own craft. The problem is this model inadvertently ends up creating a separation of concept and design from execution, a separation that severely curtails the creative agency of artisans by completely excluding them from the design stage of the product and not having them function as the artists that they are. By virtue of them being practitioners and keepers of age-old creative crafts, of age-old crafting traditions, but rather it merely has them function as the means of execution. Now, this effectively relegates the status of the artisan from that of an artist who has complete creative control of her craft, of her work, to a hand worker who simply executes relayed instructions, albeit by her hand. Now, this is where the economic and the livelihood argument of this model, the handmade manufacturing model, also falls apart. See, a consequence of the demotion of the status of artisans from that of a creative artist to that of a hand worker is that the remuneration, in accordance with their role, is now set not to the standard of an artist, but to that of a hand worker, who, despite being a craft person, is still a cog in an assembly line. A craft-based assembly line, but an assembly line all the same. An artist is a skilled role. It's a skilled job with a certain respectable remuneration. A hand worker, on the other hand, is at best a semi-skilled job role, and its remuneration is consequently limited. The end result is that, as hand workers, as job workers, the wage earnings of artisans have a strict upper limit. And as the data suggests, as we have seen, this limit is on average around $70 a month. It goes without saying that such meager income figures are not enough to entice the younger generation of artisans who are looking to fulfill their exponentially growing aspirations. And these aspirations often go beyond monetary earnings. The enterprising young artisan wishes for a vocation that allows them to engage their mind creatively. She wishes for her work to be an expression of her own self. She wishes to be recognized and respected for her work. And most importantly, she hopes to respect herself for what she does. She hopes to love the work that she does. Being an inconsequential cog in a handmade manufacturing setup does not offer her that opportunity. As such, she would rather try her fortunes at a more fashionable vocation, or something that she views to be a more fashionable vocation, than stick with her craft. And this is precisely the mindset at work behind the attrition rate in crafts. And this is the mindset one must address when designing an intervention that is relevant to the cause of crafts. So at the end of the day, it is an issue of curtailed or severely curtailed creative agency, which then translates into low income figures of artisans, which is at the heart of the problem, of the core problem of the terrible attrition rate in crafts. So this brings us to the third and final chapter of this framework, which is the resolution, where we talk about our own little solution to this problem that we have come up with. But before I do that, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to give you a personal context of how I personally came to be associated with this work. At present, I stay in this little place called Maheshwar in central India. It's a scenic little town on the banks of the Narmada, and since the medieval periods has been a thriving center of handloom weaving. I wasn't always in Maheshwar. I grew up in an even smaller place called Barakar in the eastern part of India, almost 1,500 kilometers from Maheshwar. But I first arrived in Maheshwar in 2017 when I joined as the director of this institute called the Handloom School, which is operated in Maheshwar by an organization called WomenWeave Charitable Trust. WomenWeave Charitable Trust was founded by Mrs. Sally Holker, our personal mentor, and she has lived in India and worked with artisan communities for almost half a century now. But the Handloom School at the time when I joined was one of the two pioneering artisan design institutes in India. The other being the wonderful Somaya Kalavidya, which Nishit had spoke about earlier in this forum. The objective of the Handloom School was to provide young artisans from all around India with an education that allowed them to assume complete creative control of their work, connect to markets directly, and continue as empowered ambassadors of their traditional craft. I talk about the Handloom School today, not just to give credit or bring attention to this wonderful initiative, but also because our experiences at the Handloom School, interacting with young artisans, shaped our way of thinking and eventually led to the founding of Karghewale. Karghewale was founded in late 2020 by Nivedita and me as an alternative to the handmade manufacturing model in crafts. Karghewale propounded a model which sought to make enhancement of creative agency of artisans central to its solution, because we believe that behind the core issue of low remuneration in handloom and handicrafts was a severe curtailing of creative agency faced by artisans due to an overabundance of handmade manufacturing based interventions. What Karghewale does is it works as an incubator of artisan-promoted micro enterprises, and it seeks to enable aspiring weaver, designer entrepreneurs to participate and engage with markets by using their own creativity as the means, by tapping into their own creative agency. This image that you see is from just before the founding of Karghewale, and the artisans featured in this photo, they're handloom artisans. They ended up becoming the first incubators of Karghewale. So when we talk about incubators of Karghewale, Karghewale works with handloom artisans, weavers, who aspire to become weaver designer entrepreneurs. And at the commencement of their journey with Karghewale, the artisan incubators start out as young men and women belonging to artisanal families who till now have only been engaged as craft-based wage workers in weaving. They are usually in the ages of 18 and 35 and are from rural and semi-urban pockets of India. And they earn around $70 a month from their engagement as job workers in weaving. They're part of a very critical generation of semi-urban and rural youth whose aspirations have grown exponentially, even as employment opportunities in their area have only grown linearly. And through their association with Karghewale, they wish to transform from craft-based wage workers to artisan entrepreneurs, artisan designer entrepreneurs. Artisan designer entrepreneurs are basically artisans who possess some degree of agency in the practice of their craft. And this agency comes at two levels. There's of course creative agency, which allows them to be involved in all aspects of their craft, from design to execution. And there's also agency in the form of freedom to participate in business and trade negotiations. So an artisan entrepreneur is an individual who wishes to enhance her creative agency by using design and entrepreneurship as tools. And that is what our incubators hope to become through their association with Karghewale by undergoing our incubation journey. So this brings us to Karghewale's incubation framework. Now, the key aspect of the incubation journey that Karghewale undertakes with its artisan incubators is the reassociation of the aspect of the designer to the identity of the artisan, which means that the incubation journey always begins with design. So right at the outset, artisan incubators are encouraged to find their own design language, their own identity in design, and then use that to come up with their own collection of products. And this happens at two levels. If they already possess a self-designed catalog of products, they're encouraged to hone it so that it becomes more market ready. Or they come up with their own inaugural design collection by working with a design mentor if they don't possess a collection already. And this design mentor is assigned to them by Karghewale as part of the framework. And all of this is done with the belief that promoting creative agency of artisans is indispensable for entrepreneurial success to be sustainable in the long run. And now in the next step, what Karghewale does is it helps its artisan designer incubators bring these self-designed products to the right market at both domestic and international levels through an integrated bouquet of services that Karghewale provides them with as part of the framework. This then becomes a continuous process with artisan designers continuing to innovate based on the feedback that they receive from the market, and Karghewale, as part of its incubation framework, using its service bouquet to bring the artisan design products to the market, thereby providing pathways for these fledgling artisan promoted enterprises to grow and stabilize. So Karghewale's service bouquet is an integrated bouquet of 6 services that it provides its artisan incubators with the core market linkage service at its center, as you can see on the screen. And each of these services become relevant to an artisan incubator, to an artisan entrepreneur at various stages of her journey with Karghewale. For example, when they are just starting out with the incubation framework and they're trying to get their own design collection together, the trend and design forecasting and design mentorship service becomes relevant. After that, when the products have been designed, the market linkage service becomes relevant to get those artisan design products to the right market. And the market linkage service thereafter remains relevant throughout, as the artisan entrepreneur innovates to create more products, and Karghewale uses the market linkage service as a vehicle to help these artisan design products reach the right markets. But the other services, such as the technology for business service, accounts and bookkeeping, and MIS and control system service, they become relevant as and when the artisan entrepreneur grows their business to a certain level. And these services are then required to stabilize or maintain a business. So as we come towards the end of my presentation, I would like you to meet a very special incubator of ours, Shahrukh Khan, seen here standing proudly with a sari that he's designed. Shahrukh is one of the first incubators of Karghewale, and I personally have known him since 2017, when he was one of my students at the Handloom School. Now, Shahrukh was born with a problem in his eyes, in both of his eyes, which severely hindered his eyesight. So when I first met him in 2017, he was wearing corrective lenses, a pair of spectacles, which had a power of -14 diopter in one eye and -16 diopter in the other, which in simpler terms is near blindness without the use of spectacles, without using spectacles. Now, Maheshwar, as a cluster, is known for its use of fine silks, the finest of yarns, the fine silks of the finest of deniers. And Shahrukh, with his problematic eye, was finding it more and more difficult to continue working with those fine yarns, given the amount of stress that it was causing his eyes, which gave him frequent headache, among other things. So there were two options that Shahrukh had in front of him. One was to completely give up his vocation, weaving, and find a different vocation for himself, or the path that he chose was to make use of Karghewale's incubation framework, make use of his incubation journey with Karghewale to completely redefine his design language, so that he can come up with a whole new design collection from himself, one that did not focus on the finer silk yarns, but focused on slightly thicker cotton yarns and on pattern weaves using a technique that we call multi-shaft weaving. And with this technique, with this design language that he developed, he was not only able to overcome his limitation, his physical challenge, but he was also able to reach a completely different set of clients for himself, who appreciated the weaves that he was doing, and quite a few of them were at an international level. So here is Shahrukh. I've got a small video of him. Here he is talking about his journey to overcome his challenge and his post-incubation phase design process.
बस उसी वैसे वापस चले गए जहाँ से आए थे, मास्टर वीवर के पास उनको जो काम करना था उनके पास जाकर काम करने लगे। बट मुझे तो नहीं करना था, क्योंकि मुझे अपना मेजर प्रॉब्लम पता था कि मैं वहाँ जाऊँगा फिर से मुझे वही एकदम फाइन धागे पे जो टूपला सिल्क होता है, चाइना सिल्क होता है, उसी पे काम करना पड़ेगा। वो मेरे लिए पॉसिबल था ही नहीं, क्योंकि डॉक्टर एडवाइस भी यही था मुझे कि मैं अगर इस पर काम करूँगा तो बहुत जल्द अंधा हो जाऊँगा। तो ये तो कोई दूसरा रास्ता था नहीं कि मैं कुछ जॉब कर लूँगा या फिर और कुछ कर लेंगे। रास्ता सिर्फ यही था कि या तो मास्टर वीवर के पास काम करके जो थोड़ा बहुत कमा रहे वही करते रहो, या तो फिर अपने अंदर कुछ इम्प्रूवमेंट करो, कुछ नया बनाओ, जिस वजह से हम खुद अपना काम कर सकें और जो हमारी मेजर प्रॉब्लम है उसको हम थोड़ा सा साइड में रख के और अच्छे से काम कर सकें। तो फिर इसलिए मैंने ये ट्राई किया कि नहीं, मुझे अपने डिज़ाइन बनाना है और मुझे इन्हीं पे काम करना है। मुझे हैंडलूम छोड़ना भी नहीं है और मुझे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग भी नहीं करना है, मुझे अपना काम करना है, अपने डिज़ाइन बनाना है। क्योंकि वहाँ पर सीखा था हमने ड्राफ्टिंग वगैरह का, उन सबको फिर हमने अपने हिसाब से मैंने अपने डिज़ाइन बनाए, अपना सैम्पलिंग किया, फिर उनको मैंने शेयर किया सबको, फिर मुझे काम मिलने लगा, फिर वो सब चलता रहा, फिर सब कुछ सेट हुआ धीरे धीरे करके। उसमें भी काफ़ी प्रॉब्लम्स आई, अभी भी आती है, लेकिन अब फिर भी ठीक है कि हाँ, मैंने अपना बिजनेस स्टार्ट कर लिया है, अब मैं कर रहा हूँ अपना काम और मेरा काम अच्छा चल रहा है। इसको करने के लिए भी पूरा प्लान रेडी करना होता है कि हम किस सीज़न में काम कर रहे हैं, या फिर जो हमारा कलर कॉम्बिनेशन होगा वो किस प्रकार का होगा, क्योंकि जब विंटर में रहेगा वो अलग होगा, समर में आएगा वो अलग होगा। तो फिर इस तरीके से ये जब हम लोगों ने काम स्टार्ट किया क्लाइंट के साथ करना, उसके बाद ही मुझे समझ में आया कि हाँ, ऐसा भी कुछ होता है। इससे पहले लगता था ठीक है, जो भी बना लिया वो कभी भी बिक जाएगा, लेकिन ऐसा होता नहीं है। और हर हैंडलूम के हर प्रोडक्ट को बेचने का भी एक अलग मार्केट होता है, एक अलग साइड होता है। वेस्ट का, इंडिया वेस्ट का है, वहाँ पर कुछ अलग चीज़ बिकेगा, साउथ में अलग बिकेगा। तो अब हमारा ये पर्पस होता है कि जो भी हम यार दो चीज़ें ध्यान रखना पड़ती है। एक तो ये कोई फेस्टिवल आ रहा है तो उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम लोग कुछ काम करें, या तो फिर कौन सा मौसम आ रहा है, कौन सा सीज़न आ रहा है, उसके हिसाब से हम लोग काम करें। तो फिर अब हम लोग काम इसी करते हैं, जैसे कि अभी ठंडी का मौसम चल रहा है, तो ये जो मेरा जो हैंडलूम पर फैब्रिक है, इसको मैंने ठंडी आने से, सर्दी का मौसम आने से पहले 1 महीना पहले इसका सैम्पलिंग किया था। और सैम्पलिंग करके मैंने जितने मेरे क्लाइंट थे सबको उसका एक छोटा सा स्वाद भेज दिया था कि ये मैं स्पेशल ठंडी के लिए बना, सर्दी के मौसम के लिए बना रहा हूँ। और इसको हम लोग जैकेट्स में, स्कार्फ में और ब्लेजर वगैरह बनाने में, जो भी हम लोग बनाते हैं उसमें यूज़ कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि थिक फैब्रिक है और ये सर्दी के मौसम के लिए ज़्यादा बेटर है।
So that was Shahrukh with his story. He continues to inspire us every day, and we wish him all the best as he prepares to graduate out of the program. So I'd like to end by quickly giving an idea about our traction at this point, our future plans, and our vision for the future. So at this point, we have 25 active artisan incubators who are from 6 states of India. We are in touch with another 90 artisans who are from another 6 states of India. We are facilitating the sale of around 60 units of artisan design products per month per artisan entrepreneur incubator. And we are connecting our artisan incubators to around 60 clients spread throughout the world through our market linkage service. Our artisan incubators have witnessed an almost threefold income increase by being part of the program. Before the program, they were earning around 70 USD, if you remember. And at this point, their monthly earnings are at around 200 USD. For the future, in the next 3 years, we'd like to incubate 100 artisans and develop the capacity to be able to facilitate the sale of at least 100 units of artisan design products per artisan incubator per month. And thereafter, we would like to maintain our the number of our incubators at 100 by graduating the older incubators who have attained a certain stability in their business to make way for newer incubators to be brought into the fold. And so that was our story. It has been a didactic journey for us. There have been many setbacks, many challenges, many lessons that we have learned, that we continue to learn even today. But there have also been moments of pure joy that our work has brought us, and we couldn't be more thankful to everyone who's made that possible. We still have a long way ahead for our work to reach the impact that we have envisioned for it. But with the support of well-wishers like you, the future does look optimistic. It has been a privilege interacting with you today. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.